I was wondering, just having regard to your career in real estate, what sort of support did you receive in enterprise that helped you rise to the top of your profession as a woman?
Well, initially when I went into real estate, there were very, very few women in it, especially in this area. I can't think of too many actually. But the company I worked for were really supportive.
Are they still around?
Yes, they are. If you earn money and you uphold their reputation, they really do support you. I did have a couple of occasions where I found things quite difficult. And on the first year I was in real estate, which is 32 years ago now, I met this lovely lady from Kalamunda. I was doing some business with her, and she was retiring and the business was down here. And she said, "How are you finding things, dear?" And I said, "Well, actually, it's a bit tough."
Yes.
And she said, "What are you experiencing that's tough?" And in those days, we used to conjunct a lot.
Yeah.
And when you first start out in real estate, you don't actually have listings to run with.
Yeah, right.
It takes a little while to build them up.
Yep.
And so therefore I was doing conjunctionals. I was finding it really difficult because I was dealing with men the whole time who didn't like sharing. And I said, "I really find this really difficult. I don't find it particularly professional. I don't really know what to do about it." And she said, "Well, there's nothing much you can do about it." But she said, "Just keep pushing on," because she said, "Keep your head down and your blinkers on." And she said, "Just always maintain your level of professionalism. And eventually you will get some listings. Yeah. And then they will want to conjunct with you."
Yeah.
And she said, "So then they'll start respecting you a lot more." And that is exactly what happened.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So it was good advice.
Good advice from
and
another...
I've often passed it on to other women who've come in since me. And I've mentored a few women in the industry. And I've always said to them, and my boss actually, who is still on the high street in Mount Lawley, said to me at the time, "As soon as you get sold stickers up, you'll get momentum on." And he said, "Always put your own sold stickers up, because it takes a lot of effort to put that sold sticker up. So always stick it on yourself, because it gives you a great feeling of satisfaction."
Sense of
and
achievement.
I've always done that.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so there's a couple more questions from the answer that you've just given us. One, you talked about the way that you were mentored by the woman from Kalamunda, so that's pretty inspirational, because that's a real story of somebody having handed down the knowledge and information that they gained over the years. Had she been in the industry for a while before?
She had, ironically. She'd probably been in the industry, I think, about 30 years.
Yeah,
she was about to resign, and or retire actually.
Yes.
And they do things a little bit differently in the hill, because it's more of, on the hills, because it's more of a village environment up there, but down here it's, Mount Lawley is a very big area.
Yeah.
It's very diverse.
Yeah, I think both of those observations
And I've lived in this area for 50 years, over, and I've got to understand the subtleties of the area. And my children were born in which is now known as St John's Mount Lawley. It was Mercy Hospital at the time. And they went to the pre-primary down there on Railway Parade, and from there they went to the primary school.
Yep. It's a well-worn path.
Then the high school.
Well, so far my sons can claim the first part, having been born at Mercy, and it was still Mercy then when they were born, changed a couple of years later, and then the pre-primary was over at the high school, because the primary school had burnt down, and now at the primary school. The next question I had for you was, over the course of your illustrious career, what sort of changes have you seen in respect to how the profession treats women? I mean, were it not for the fact that you'd provided the advice and mentoring to some of the young women coming through, would they still have been able to make a success in the industry? Have we seen some positive change over time? Oh
yeah, we have, because the courses were always run by men, always. Yeah. So when you went off to do your training courses, it was always a man's perspective. Yeah. But women have taken on course leaders now. I think we can thank REWA for that. REWA have worked very hard in the industry to get equality, and yeah, it's pretty well balanced, I would say now.
That's fantastic to know that the industry association supports that.
Oh
aim.
yeah, REWA's a wonderful organisation.
Yeah, oh, that's really good to hear. And that brings me to my final question for this morning. What sort of changes would you like to see, both in the industry and more broadly, in order to enable more women to succeed?
I'd like to see, well, things have changed quite dramatically, because in those days women really didn't go to work after they had children. They abandoned their careers if they had one. In a lot of cases they didn't have one.
Yeah.
Certainly my network of friends, I first met them at the pre-primary.
Yep.
And we're still to this day all really good friends, and we supported each other because I didn't have a vehicle. A lot of us didn't have a second car. So I used to walk down to the pre-primary railway or Shine, and then, you know, people put their hand of friendship out and said, look, we can come past your place and pick you up, save you getting wet, and all this sort of thing. And then it sort of stemmed from there, and we're always swapping recipes and cuttings out of the garden, children's clothes. And then when we went to the primary school, we started off all sorts of groups at the primary school. One of the things that we did, which I think is still run, and it was really successful, was the Mother's Day stall. So we started that, and then we also started the cake stall on election day.
That's still an absolute favourite.
And we sold fortune cookies. And we had a lot of fun, and that was all fundraising for playground equipment and what have you. And so yeah, and there were book clubs, and as far as my advice to any young women today is to always pursue your interests. And I'd like to see more affordable childcare for people with young children if they choose to stay at home. And I think childcare is so expensive from what I can make out. And a lot of women would choose to stay home if they could have some affordable childcare and they could pursue their career and perhaps go off and get a degree. And I do know, actually, a friend of mine, she went off and got her science degree.
Yeah.
And we looked after her kids on a roster while she was studying.
So it takes a village to raise a child.
Well, it does, and that brings me back to where I was born. I was born in a village, and I grew up in a village, and I think that stays with you.
Yeah.
I grew up in the little village where Charles Darwin...
Is that right? See, I didn't know that about you, Jan. That's fantastic.
And a little village called Down near Orpington in Kent. And I went to the Down Primary School. I did all my primary school training there, education there, and then I actually visited last year again.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I mean, Mount Lawley is a bit of a village.
It is.
When you describe the way friendships are formed around the pre-primary and around the primary school with the parents who are dropping their kids off and those sorts of things, that's still that sentiment has stood the test of time. I mean, that's still the way things go at Mount Lawley Primary, and you know there's still. The PNC are always asking me when the next election is going to be so that they can have their election day cake stall and their democracy sausage.
Democracy.
Well, that's brilliant, Jan. I think that's a fantastic insight into your particular professional career. Next time I'm going to come back and ask you questions about all the contributions that you've made to the community through the Mount Lawley Residents and Ratepayers Association, the Mount Lawley Society, because I think you're an integral part of our local community because you've been here and played a role.
I love it, yeah.
You can see that.
Mount Lawley.
Yeah. And I can hear that in all the conversations I've had with you. Thanks again for your time this morning.
You're very welcome.
That was
Thank
brilliant.
you for coming.
Not a worry.